In this video, we're gonna talk about health and disease, what that really means. What is the reason behind health and disease? All life is an interplay between production and consumption of energy. What we see here is the mitochondria. Mitochondria is coined the powerhouse of our cells. They produce the energy required for a cell to function. And what is health in relationship to the energy? Well, health means that the energy of the organism is greater than the stress it experiences. So we need an abundance of energy for proper function of our body, for building, repairing, and communication. And if the body doesn't have the energy required to carry out its function, we have disease. So it's a constant battle between the body functions and the stress it needs to handle. Body function depends on a lot of things: nutrients, enzymes, how the body is wired, and the epigenetic expression. We will go into this in more detail later in the video. And the stressors is the waste products, infections, toxins, and psychological stress. And we will also go into this in more detail. Health means putting our cells on the winning side of the energy equation. Now we're gonna go a little bit more into depth of the functionality aspect. We start with body wiring. And body wiring is basically how our body is structured. Are we large? Are we thin? The bone structures, how the organs are placed. This is different from person to person. A short person, the heat is more evenly distributed, like you can conserve heat more. A person that is more tall can easier get rid of heat. And as you can see, the Eskimos and maybe people living in a warm climate like Africa, you can see a clear difference in how these people look. And this is a difference in body wiring. And people have different metabolism, how we break down food, how we take out the energy from food, and what we take out from the food. And our nerves, the nervous system, is different. How the body communicates can be different. We can have different pathways in the brain, different pathways in the body. Slight difference or large difference depending on a lot of factors. And epigenetics is crucial because basically epigenetics is all the adaptive changes we have done to the environment. So everything that happens to us, in response to this, our genetic code that decides what we're gonna build, repair, and communicate will change in response. For example, if you live in a very stressful environment, maybe you're brought up, you are born during war, and there is a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of stress and a lot of danger, your body will turn on different gene expressions that will be more suitable in that environment. It may require a lot of energy doing so, always being on the guard, on the edge, but it is necessary to survive in this environment. If you're brought up on an isolated island, for example, and there's nothing going on there, you may make other adaptive changes. And one good example is the difference between a lion and a human and the nutrient vitamin C. We can't produce vitamin C. We could at one point. Now we cannot. Lions, they produce their own vitamin C, so they can survive only eating meat. We change because of the environment. And if we have an abundance of sunlight, then we will adapt and get darker skin. To not get sunburned, for example. But these changes take time, and a lot of changes I'm talking about are the genetics. But the epigenetics is the start of these expressions also. There's mutation and there's also epigenetic expression. It's a complex field. But all of this affects the functioning of our body. And a key component to epigenetics and the changes and everything is nutrition. What we put into our body in terms of vitamin and minerals, but not only this. Nutrition is more than this. It is about how we actually metabolize what we eat. How much vitamin B2 or vitamin D do I get out from the food I eat? This differs from individual to individual, and this in turn affects the functioning. So it is a function in itself, how we get the food and the nutrients from it, but it also affects the functioning because we get a difference between the fuel. I get a different fuel than you, even if we eat the same food. And a lot of enzymes are needed. Enzymes are basically what decides what should be built, repaired, and communicated. And sometimes vitamins and minerals may be needed in higher doses, not to correct a deficiency, but to turn on different enzymes. One example is vitamin B1. You can read more about that, and we can make a video about it as well. But not in this video. So we go to stressors. Everything that is happening in the body needs to be cleaned up. We create waste products by living. And this can be the thoughts you're thinking and the feelings you're experiencing. It is electrical impulses and it's regenerating heat, for example. But it's also chemical reactions that create byproducts. So dopamine, the neurotransmitter, needs to be broken down after it's been used, and that creates different kind of metabolites. And all this needs to be cleaned up. If we don't, we get a burden, a stress that will lead to disease. We have infections, that is a stress on the body. Virus, bacteria, fungi, yeast, parasites. All this live inside our body, but they should not take over. They take from our energy. The viruses can multiply in cells and affect the cells so they can't function properly. The bacteria produces toxins and they can affect the immune system. The fungi, yeast, parasites, all these living, they take up nutrition and they take up space, and they are in the way of the functioning of the body. And speaking of this, toxins can be anything that enters the body that impairs functionality. So bacteria and viruses and all this can lead to a production of toxins, but toxins can be something like mercury, for example. And mercury is a heavy metal that we As of now, as of yet, we don't know any that it feels any role in the body. It fills any role in the body. But it impairs the electro currents and the communication systems, because we use minerals, for example, for communication in the body. And it attaches to the receptors that we need the proper minerals. So it disrupts and impairs functionality. Another example is fluoride, for example. We also have psychological stress. It could be your social status. Are you single? Are you loved? Do you have a purpose? All this, if you don't have this, puts a lot of stress. And if you have it, it gives energy. And interactions with people, we are social beings. So when we speak to each other, when we interact, we affect the chemistry in each other's bodies. And that's why you can actually heal people with psychological interventions or touch and physical intimacy. You can actually, in some cases, the balance can be shifted over to the winning side by just this intervention. So the environment, if we're surrounded by a lot of stress and a lot of danger and stuff, yeah, that affects the functioning a lot. So this was just a quick starting point about health and disease. And if you like this video and want more videos in depth, I could produce those videos and also produce them with better sound. And yeah, if you appreciate this, please leave a comment and I will continue making this type of content and try to make it better. So that's basically it, and I hope you like this and got some sort of overarching picture of what health and disease really means.